Happy New Year and welcome back to Casual Watch Reviews. This week we're looking at the first Zodiac watch to feature on the channel. And before we start, a big thanks to Zodiac for sending me this Super Sea Wolf 53 in for review. I've been wanting to get my hands on a Zodiac for a long time and I'm really glad that I managed to finally get to review one because they've been really making a lot of waves in the watch world, certainly last year but over the last couple of years. So I was really keen to get hands-on with one of their watches. If you're not familiar with the brand Zodiac, they actually have a rich history of watchmaking starting in 1882. It became Zodiac by name in 1908. So well over 100 years the brand's been around under the Zodiac name. This model in particular pays homage to their first dive watch, the Sea Wolf. The 53 gets its name from 1953, which is the year that this watch was released. And it kept in good company that year because also that year, the Submariner and the Blancpain 50 fathoms were also released. The aim was to make a robust dive watch for the burgeoning sport of recreational scuba diving. And the Zodiac watches of the time were priced in the same category as both the Submariner and 50 fathoms. The brands competed as opposed to Zodiac being the lesser or more affordable alternative. Those early Zodiac Sea Wolves had features like rotating bezels and decent depth ratings as you would expect from modern dive watches. But their difference between the Submariner and the 50 fathoms was that the case size was more akin to standard case size watches of that time, so considered more wearable. So therefore the Sea Wolf watches became very popular and it certainly cemented Zodiac's dive watch legacy. It is fair to say that Zodiac as a brand has had a few ups and downs during its life. The brand's changed hands a couple of times. Thankfully, Zodiac found itself in safe hands when it was acquired by the Fossil Group in 2001. Even though it's owned by a large company, it still behaves as an independent watch company, with all of the Zodiac watches being handmade in Switzerland even to this day. It's fair to say in recent years Zodiac has really looked at its rich history and bought a lot of vintage inspired models out, but more so last year that you started to see more innovative watches looking to the futures using materials like meteorite and ceramic. So they're definitely maneuvering a brand with the goal of looking to the future as well as paying respect to those vintage designs. Before we dive into the review, this week's upload is brought to you by my friends over at Man Cave Leather. They make some of the best handmade leather watch straps that I've ever reviewed on the channel. They've been a supporter ever since I started. They also make these amazing watch pouches for travel or for storing your watches at home, and these awesome card wallets, and also help to support a Ukrainian owned business. Head on over to mancaveleather.com. This model that we're looking at here, the ZO9212, features a 39mm case, a lug-to-lug of 46.2mm, and a thickness of only 12.7mm, making it an extremely wearable watch. Here you can see it on my 7.2-inch wrist. If you really like dive watches but you're worried about the size, I think these Zodiacs would be a great option for you because the cases are a lot more wearable, and that case size at 39mm and that reduced thickness really adds to the comfort, I think, even on smaller wrists. The case is brushed all over and the lug sloped down towards the wrist, really adding to the comfort. This case has a vintage look that this collection from Zodiac has become famous for. I love the look of the case, honestly. The case back really brings in the vintage design aesthetic with nicely polished sections and engraved lettering. The case is topped by a high polish, scratch resistant ceramic insert with lume markers. The bezel is precise with zero play in it, but the action I would say is about a 7 out of 10. Other watches in this price bracket I've reviewed have smoother, more sophisticated feeling mechanisms. An example would be the Christopher Ward C60 Trident Pro 300. That's a 10 out of 10 in this price bracket for me. Now, if Zodiac are going with a vintage feel to this bezel, then they have nailed it. I would say just in comparison to other watches in that segment, the bezel action is just not as smooth. The bezel will get the job done and looks great with the orange triangle and pip at the top. And to accompany the bezel is a really nice, slightly domed sapphire crystal. The crown itself is a real highlight, nicely finished with an engraved logo. Very easy to grip and nicely in proportion with the case. The tricky thing, however, is screwing the crown back in once you've unscrewed it. It does take some getting used to, and at times I was concerned about cross-threading it. Now I do find this more often than not in cases that have curved sides to them, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because of that curvature and the way that the crown has to screw tight to the case. Once you get used to it, it is less of an issue, but I think there could be some refinement there. Housed in the case is what Zodiac call their in-house STP-1-11 movement. They're technically correct because Fossil does own STP, Swiss Technologies Production to use their full name. This is a large movement manufacturer that produces about 100,000 movements per year. This is vastly over the number of watches that Zodiac produced, so this movement can be found in other watches. This STP movement is similar to a Sleater SW200 or an ETA 2824 to add some context. The dial is what makes this model so special. It screams vintage Zodiac and really pays homage to their past. The dial has an almost sand texture to it, giving a satin finish look to the dial. The printing is sharp for the text, and the logo is also printed on the dial as opposed to being applied. The indices are brushed squares with a loomed triangle to accompany them. The markers at 12, 3, 6 and 9 give the watch a distinctive look. These are brushed with loom applied in such a way to leave the unloomed areas to depict the numbers. The hands are very legible. I'm a massive fan of minute hands that go all the way to the outer minute track, and this watch doesn't disappoint. The hands are brushed and loomed and straight out of the Zodiac archives. The second hand looks really cool with its hollowed out triangle and longer tip. So let's talk about the loom for a second. When I was researching this watch, I read a review on Zodiac's website from an owner that complained that the loom didn't last that long. I wanted to test this for myself, so I recorded a Seiko speed timer and this watch together after giving them both a blast of UV light for about 30 seconds. Over a 15-minute period, sped up massively here. You can see the loom is not as long lasting as Seiko. Now I'm not sure if this was the type of loom that they used or the colour, because it is an orange loom. I think this is the first watch I've reviewed with orange loom where it wasn't in tritium tubes. It is fair to say that the watch offers a lot of contrast in low light because of those distinctive indices in white and the hands. But if you need a watch for longer nighttime viewing, then you may be left a little disappointed with this particular model. The strap is another highlight of this watch. Great quality and comfortable to wear. The buckle is very well machined and engraved with the Zodiac logo. Even though the strap has the Zodiac logo embossed in the rubber, I'm going to take a guess that this is made by Benito Centurini, an Italian-based rubber strap maker. Sorry for the likely poor pronunciation of that for any native Italian speakers. Benito Centurini make a watch strap very similar to this one, but the big giveaway is the vanilla smell of the strap. This is synonymous with Benito Centurini watch straps, but I'm really glad to see Zodiac offer such a high quality rubber strap with this particular model. Although I think it might add a little bit more to the vintage aesthetic if it was a tropic strap. Let me know if you agree in the comments section. You can add a bracelet as an option. On Zodiac's website, it's listed as $295. I would really need to see one to see if it was worth it or not. Let me know in the comments if you own one and what you think. The bracelet does have good reviews on their website, to be fair. This watch retails for $1,095 here in the US. This is a very competitive price segment for mid-luxury dive watches. If you love the look of vintage Zodiacs, then I think this is a great choice. I know a few people who own this watch and love them. Jason over at watchrolling.com recently had a review published on a blog to watch for his variant of this watch, the Zodiac Super Sea Wolf Z09209. A fascinating read. I'll leave a link in the comments section down below. I'm not sure how long this particular watch will stay in my personal collection, but I am certainly more drawn to the more adventurous colour watches that they do, the ones with the date, so I'll certainly be keeping an eye on those in the future. If you're interested in learning more about the Zodiac brand and the direction that they're going into, I've interviewed Mike Pearson, Zodiac's international brand director, on the live stream show, and he's joined us as a panel guest on other live streams on a number of occasions. Absolutely fascinating information. So in summary here, this was a very interesting vintage inspired dive watch. I'm personally really excited about what Zodiac are going to produce in the future. They seem to be going in the right direction with their new leadership, and I'll certainly be following them closely. Well, you saw my opinion there. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. If you're not subscribed, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. If you want to get involved in the conversation, we've been having some great fun over on the live stream, so subscribe to the channel and then be notified the next time we do a live stream and get involved in the comment section. Always really appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.